Hi, welcome to EG Responsible, our video series to talk about the ESG and sustainability implications in the global services industry. I am really excited today to be joined by Akshat Ved. This is a continuing part of our series that's actually internal. So Akshat is with our engineering practice, and I am just really excited to have him here. Akshat, give us a hello.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Rita, thanks for inviting me here. I know we've collaborated on some of our research pieces in the past, but happy we could do this today.
Yes, absolutely. And that is the subject for today's vlog, I guess we should call it. We did a point of view on ESG and as it relates to engineering. And there is a link to that report in the description of this video. And let's get right into it, a deep dive into a lot of what we talked about in the report as it relates to the environment, which is timely and pressing. So tell us a little bit more about this engineering manufacturing continuum.
Sure. No, that's a great way to kick it off, right? So the engineering manufacturing continuum, as you mentioned, right? It's a huge global spend area. Just within the engineering and manufacturing technology, we estimate close to, I think, over $1 trillion spend on an annual basis, which is consistently going up. So it's a very large spend. As you can imagine, this relates to products being developed, designed, tested, engineered, then manufactured, and so on and so forth, right? And the aspects around sustainability, social aspects, governance aspects, environmental aspects, right? They are right at the heart of this spend, I must say, right? So in that spirit, if you look at the engineering manufacturing continuum, there are broadly three pieces that we should look into. On one side, we have the processes which go into the engineering of the product, which is how do we engineer? What are the processes that we are deploying? What are the tools and technologies we are deploying to engineer a product? Second, when that product goes into the manufacturing stage, how are we going about it? So the aspects around supply chains, your equipment, your energy that is used in the manufacturing world and so on, that's the other aspect. And thirdly, and perhaps the most important part of it is, what is it that you are creating? You're talking about creating products which are very sustainable. It's obviously an evolution always, but over a period of time, are we talking about products which are more sustainable? They have lesser impact on the globe, and they check the box on a lot of different aspects around the environmental aspect, right?
As well as enabling the sustainability, not just being sustainable in and of themselves.
Absolutely. In fact, that is the heart of the third bit that I spoke about, which is the product, right? So if we start going deeper into it, there are lots of things that one could look at, and I'm going to sprinkle them across those three aspects that I spoke about. But maybe I can start with the product bit, right? So sustainable product and component design is perhaps the first and the most important piece here. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about using materials which have a lesser impact on the globe. And we are talking about products here, and at the end of it, it's good for us to acknowledge that we are literally talking about everything that exists in the world, every man-made thing, right? So from that standpoint, using materials which are more sustainable, they have lesser impact on the environment. It's very important. This becomes all the more critical when we are talking about using things like rare earth materials, right? There are firms which have already started either recycling some of the older products or substituting them for some of the others, which are equally useful and so on, right? So circular design in the creation of products, ensuring recycling of things and ensuring alternate materials are used. These are all very important aspects. The second part I'd highlight under this broad bucket of sustainable product and component design, it's about creating products which can help achieve energy savings, right? So they have higher energy efficiencies, they consume alternate energy sources and so on, right? There's another aspect to this whole energy thing, which is about products having lesser emissions. and they may even be using lower resources, natural resources like water, right? And as you can imagine, this applies to such a wide variety of different products, right? You can see in this on the screen that we are projecting, there are lots of companies who've already started making certain attempts to do that. You see Samsung here on the waste management initiative, a similar one. The second last one is around circular economy. So lots of those initiatives are already visible. There's so much more to be done, but I must acknowledge that some of these things have started to happen. There's another interesting aspect that I would like to pick up, which is around adding more and more functionality to products, right? And that's the core of it. Everybody wants to engineer and develop better, more impactful, more functional products. But there could be a pitfall there, in the sense that some of the functionality that you might add, um, that may be fairly interesting, but it may have a fairly negative impact. Like, for example, if you are adding AI features into the product, and that's going to be something that each and every consumer of yours would use, that may mean that you have to run servers at the back end, which will consume such immense amount of energy, right? So, being considerate in terms of using some of those features only to the extent that it adds value, and at a certain level you're maintaining the equilibrium between what does it cost, not just financially but environmentally, to maybe add those products. That's a huge one. So I think that's the summary of the sustainable product and component design bit. I think the others, and I'll quickly cover some of those as well, which is both on the production and the engineering processes front. There is lots that can be done, right? Again, we need to acknowledge the scale. We are talking about literally everything which is produced, which is man-made, and any savings that you can do environmentally, they're going to be huge, right? Um, so lots of things. For example, on the engineering side, you're talking about the usage of digital twins. You're talking about monitoring the energy consumption in buildings, in premises, in manufacturing setups, across the supply chain for that matter. We mentioned the aspect around usage of rare earth materials, but even when we are actually talking about the manufacturing of those, are we taking the same notion into the manufacturing world as well? So material recycling initiatives, use of alternate product packaging materials, and so on. Those are really, really important. There are other aspects around water saving in the production processes, carbon capture processes. The canvas of this is extremely huge. Again, I would acknowledge that the world has started to move, but so much more can be done, to be honest.
Totally agree with all of that. I mean, it's a huge landscape, and it does encompass literally every single thing that we use in our day-to-day lives. There are two other letters in the ESG continuum that we do talk about, or space that we talk about. Tell us a little bit about how engineering and social overlap with each other.
Sure, absolutely. Again, I'd say that the engineering manufacturing continuum, there's so much that can be done on the social and the governance fronts as well. There are so many intersection points that you feel that we haven't really even scratched the surface, right? I'll take the social aspects first, right? So things like inclusion, there's such a huge opportunity to drive the inclusion agenda. Even if you look at talent, right, on the engineering front, the talent is distributed across the globe. I would acknowledge that on the other side, because of shortage of readily available talent, people have started to look across different geographies. But I think this can be done so much more. On the manufacturing side, I would say there are so many marginalized communities where manufacturing actually happens, and anything which can be done to uplift them socially, provide them even trainings, vocational trainings, or contributing to their education, better lifestyles. I think that part of the world which is catering to the manufacturing needs a lot of help. There's gender disparity as well. Especially on the manufacturing side, you would see the workforce being or rather there being so much more of male workforce. You could have other genders come in. You also mentioned the third letter, governance. Again, aspects around, for example, are you reporting the reasonable use of materials such as conflict minerals, right, to the consumers? I think that's an important one. Ensuring that there is good enough transparency as far as supplier performance and their sustainability scorecards and benchmarks. they are fully incorporated into your choices. I think that's a huge aspect, right? So like I said, so
Yeah,
much to do. So many areas to address. But I think the good news is that we, over the last couple of years, have started to see some momentum towards change.
I agree. I agree. And I think regulators are catching up. So it's not just a feel good, do good activity. It's actually starting to become required, which is then also leading itself to potential collaborations, especially with industry
Yeah,
associations and such. So it's more like co-opetition is happening where there's a lot more working across industry. So thank
true.
you so much for this conversation. And like we said at the start, there is a link to the report that we've written just recently and would love to keep continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.